Today's topic is sleep disorders. We'll assume you came into the store and you have problems sleeping. And I'll give you the basic advice that I would give somebody, which is of course the simplest advice, but since we have only about 5 or so minutes, that's about all the time we have for it. The most important thing for sleeping is melatonin, which is part of your sleep cycle and regulates your sleep rhythms. We get melatonin naturally from being in the daylight 1 to 2 hours a day, and then we get it at night when we're in absolute darkness. So living in the city is quite a problem with artificial light streaming in through the windows, and it's important that you try to sleep in a room as dark as possible. We lose melatonin through what we call EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. These are things that were put off by computers, electric blankets. A clock radio that's closer than 4 feet from your head actually puts off a radius of a 4-foot circle of EMFs, which will dampen melatonin if you're exposed to them for long periods of time. Desktop computers generally, the towers and the monitors put off EMFs at a fairly high rate, though laptops not so much if you don't hold them in your lap. I'll give you an example here. This is a Gauss meter, and it measures electromagnetic frequencies. Gauss meter you turn on, and then you use it to test something like a phone. Now, a phone's one of the worst because you're holding it close to your head, and most phones have a fairly high EMF field. For example, we'll phone this number and show you what it's like when you turn the phone on. Now, anytime the Gauss meter makes a noise and it's above 2 for any length of time, and at this point it's spiking between 8 and 10, that exposure is radically depleting your melatonin. The phone that called me is a cell phone, and the cell phone's also got quite an EMF field around it. This is sometimes a problem for people who carry these phones strapped to them. When they're on all the time, they can actually become damaging to the ovaries or the prostate, those organs. So some people will carry their phone on an ankle holster so they're away from any sensitive tissues and organs. When your melatonin is low, you have a hard time sleeping. But also melatonin makes serotonin, your calming neurotransmitter. And when your serotonin's low, you get what I call brain race, or some call rooftop chatter. The brain just keeps worrying things through the day and it won't shut up. That's a sign of serotonin deficiency. Now we can raise our serotonin through a couple supplements. We can use L-theanine, which happens to be my favorite, and it takes the brain from a high beta wave of active thinking down to a slow alpha wave, which is what meditation is in pre-dream state. Another popular supplement is 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is a form of tryptophan legal here in Canada that also raises serotonin levels. So the serotonin goes up, the excessive thinking drops down, we're in a pre-sleep state. Then usually we can move into a sleep state. At this point, I like to take a melatonin, and these are sublingual. Melatonin is damaged by stomach acids. So there's two forms. There's the sublingual, which you take under the tongue, let it dissolve about 5 minutes before you shut off the light. Excuse me. Or time release for people who wake up in the middle of the night. And that gives you an arc of melatonin through the 8 hours of sleep. This is a 3 milligram melatonin, as are most of them, but in fact you have to be 70 years old to require 3 milligrams of melatonin. So some people will take that and find it doesn't work for them. It can actually make you sleep too long, feel groggy in the morning. It can create excessive dreaming, or in fact it can keep you awake if you're very sensitive to it. So if you're under 50, you generally want to start with half of a melatonin. If you're in your 20s, probably a quarter of a melatonin. And the only people that it's dangerous to give to are adolescents, because the body withholds melatonin during the development of the sexual organs. So never give melatonin to young people 12 to 16, say, without a professional's advice. Last year we linked, there was a study that linked artificial lighting to breast cancer. And artificial lighting helps dampen melatonin production. We stay up well beyond the sun goes down. We stay under artificial lights. And in fact, as our melatonin declines, our immune function declines and certain cancer rates rise as well. So since we're always generally in electromagnetic fields, I have a car 2 years old, the Gauss meter screams in the car. It's only a 4-cylinder, but it has so many computers in it that in fact it's got a high electromagnetic field. So even if you don't use electric blankets, even if you don't work in front of electric cash registers, even if you don't have a clock radio that's plugged in, you can still be exposed to EMF fields in a wide range of areas and to artificial lighting. So I believe melatonin is an essential nutrient for the 21st century, and that most people will benefit from it. I try to use it only 5 days a week so as to create no dependency, and skip the weekends or the days that I get outside enough to get enough natural light on my face so that I shouldn't require any melatonin. This is the basic sleep requirements for most people, and the basic problem with most modern sleep issues is a lack of serotonin, a lack of melatonin. So simply acquiring these two elements for 70–80% of people is going to be quite adequate when they know how to use it. That is, you take your theanine, your 5-HTP, half hour before bed to get the brain calmed down. You take your melatonin 5 minutes before you shut off the light, because if you turn on the lights, the melatonin dissipates. So if you have to get up at night to go to the bathroom and you flip on the lights, your melatonin's all just going to dissipate. You're going to have a hard time getting back to sleep. That's why you want to have minimal lighting to get up at night, and darkness as much as possible in your bedroom. That's pretty much the basics of it. There's certainly other sleep aids such as valerian, lemon balm, herbal tinctures that you can use for occasional problems. But when it's a chronic problem, the first thing is to look at the neurotransmitters involved, and those are the two main ones. Hope this has been of help, and we'll see you next time on Vitaminutes. Thank you.